Ladies and gentlemen, be careful. Pay attention. Whenever you're listening to Donald Trump, don't let his words infiltrate your brain. Whatever's left of your brain from 4 years of media meltdown and hysterical, apoplectic, seething, fuming contempt and disdain leveled at this man from the second he was inaugurated. Go look up what Madonna stated, about what Madonna would like to have done to the White House. I don't know if that makes sense. Look up what she stated that day on what she wanted to do to the White House because the Orange Menace defeated Clinton. By the way, did they try to tarnish and his reputation and call him illegitimate and complain about Facebook ads and say that Russia helped Trump and hurt Clinton and make baseless allegations? Well, of course they did, but be careful. Be careful. Their baseless allegations were backed up by baseless allegations from James Clapper, who you look at the intelligence community from the Gulf of Tonkin to WMD. Please tell me what they've called, accurately predicted, what they've been right about. If anything, their catastrophic failures have led to a loss of life that is unimaginable, both in this country and abroad. But here, Facebook removes, let's just get to the point, because you know me, it can meander off into endless tangents. Facebook removes video of Trump interview with daughter-in-law Lara Trump. Lara Trump, Facebook permanently banned the former president in January. Okay, so I'm going to read this to you. This is a Fox article. I'm going to read this to you from the vantage point in the manner it has to be read. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Ladies and gentlemen, it is tough now. It's increasingly difficult, and I've managed, thank God, to have, perfect standing with YouTube, and my YouTube representative always compliments me on the fact that, I have such great standing. The reason, though, is I'm long-winded, and there are certain words like you have to say lives lost. You literally can't say the word that means that. If you, it's not just certain topics you can't talk about. If you actually state certain words, from what I've seen, from my experiences, that video. So anyway, I'm long-winded, and I try my best, and it's increasingly difficult, especially if you have a perspective that defends President Trump. But hit subscribe to this channel, please. Tell your friends about this channel. It's the best thing you could do for me. If you want to support my voice long-term, my Patreon is below. And it's also on HAGoodman.com if you want to read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Jerusalem Post, The Federalist, The Daily Caller, other publications. Go to HAGoodman.com. You can see my debates there as well. Facebook removed a video of an interview with former President Trump conducted by his daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, saying any content, quote, in the voice of Trump would be scrubbed from the social media platform. If it's even associated in any way with the voice of Trump, it doesn't even have to be Trump. Just a voice. Just anything that reminds you of the orange monster. You're not gonna get to hear it or see it. Too bad. That's their vantage point. No. What happened in January, all Trump's fault, even though the Attorney General of D.C. and the Mayor of D.C. didn't level charges at President Trump. I wonder why. Maybe because he's protected under the free speech. And maybe because those people, and the people who lost their lives should be alive today. I noticed that there are people and activists on the left that, there was an unarmed woman who lost her life. Now, I noticed there's no outrage. And it's interesting how the left works. But she was an unarmed woman. In the Democratic Party's perspective, well, you know what? Anything that comes to you, if you do that in such a sanctuary, well, it's too bad. Anyway, the duplicity and disingenuous nature of a great many people, apoplectic, morally superior, wonderful liberal Democrats, it's pretty astounding. But President Trump's words, his claims, his thought process he is, okay, it's not always, he's not right about everything. He has made missteps, but he has accomplished a lot more than President Obama. And Bush, infinitely more than Bush. President Obama engaged in a failed NATO intervention that destroyed a country in Libya. This is a fact. Human beings are being bought and sold right now in that country because of a direct result of President Obama's foreign policy. And Biden and Clinton pushed for that intervention. Okay, that regime change. What did Trump do that's even close to that in terms of a catastrophe? Nothing. You can't blame Trump for the pandemic response of governors that dropped the ball, like Andrew Cuomo, for example, and Phil Murphy, for example. And God bless the people of New York and New Jersey. They deserve better than Andrew Cuomo and Phil Murphy. But anyway, Facebook permanently banned the former president from their platform in January after on Tuesday, Lara Trump, a Fox News contributor, posted an image on Instagram of her sitting across from her father-in-law, urging followers to join us tonight. A group of Trump officials were sent an email from a Facebook employee notifying that any content posted on Facebook and Instagram in the voice of President Trump is not currently allowed on our platforms, including new posts with President Trump speaking. So, even if you made one of those animatronic things you see at Disneyland, like Pirates of the Caribbean, like the animatronic, like little robot things, if it was like this orange giant animatronic Trump, and it was like, said something along the lines of what President Trump would say, that wouldn't be allowed on Facebook, I guess. Anything in the voice of Trump. Too bad for you, 74 million Americans. You don't have what it takes to decipher whether or not Trump's words, or, you might not have the ability to repel any negative impulses, or to not succumb to any base emotions because of Trump's words. Because what Trump does is when he speaks, the Orange Menace speaks in such a hypnotic manner that anyone who voted for him, his words reach a homing beacon in their minds. And then what happens is they don't have any control of their emotions, or they have no more willpower. They're basically AI robots doing the bidding of the orange notorious monster. That's the way that media and Democrats think of Trump supporters after January. Meanwhile, they had 4 or 5 months of $1 to $2 billion in property damage, 19 lives lost according to Wikipedia. But Democratic politicians had absolutely nothing to do with it. Their words had absolutely nothing to do with it. The words of activists had nothing to do with it. And I agree. That was a murder, what happened to George Floyd. I do agree with that. So I'm not, I don't think that, look, I support law enforcement. As you can see, I'm part of the 1199 Foundation. I love the California Highway Patrol, law enforcement in California. I respect them greatly. But there are bad apples. There are individuals in healthcare, in law, in every element of society, every industry. Now, I understand there's definitely a specific problem with police brutality. It affects everyone. Look at I believe his name is Daniel Shavers. Look at that video. In Daniel Shaver in Arizona. Okay? Look what happened to that man. Okay, that was an atrocity of, epic proportions. A heinous atrocity. But I agree. That needs to be addressed. But do you then say, because what Democrats and media have done is say, well, you know what, you can't listen to Trump anymore because, bad things happen. Well, bad things were happening for 4 to 5 months. Simply saying, well, it was to rectify a wrong doesn't either warrant or explain $1 to $2 billion in property damage. How many minority-owned businesses were torched ruined? How many people were injured? A great many. A lot more than 19 lives were lost. So you Democrats, media, when they're calling it fiery but peaceful, they don't have a leg to stand on in terms of judgment and condemnation. Okay, they looked by and allowed $1 to $2 billion in property damage and curfews every night in every major city. Again, I'm not saying that there wasn't an atrocity with George Floyd. There was the same atrocity with Eric Garner. He was murdered in New York. That was in 2014. But Democrats did nothing. Okay? My point is, you look at one political side and say that they can't be trusted with words. And you look at another political side that one can say, although I'm not saying that any particular group is responsible solely for the $1 to $2 billion in property damage and 19 lives lost. What I am saying is that it coincided with the very peaceful protests. You never hear any condemnation about words compelling people to do bad things. And that's my point. There's a double standard. There's a tremendous amount of duplicity. It has nothing to do with, I can go... We can talk about that subject matter endlessly, the duplicity, the way media looks at one situation in a completely different light from another, and it always benefits one political party. I always ask the following question: why doesn't Biden kneel during the national anthem? He derives all the political benefit of people who protest, of athletes who protest. Democrats derive every ounce of political benefit. Why don't they kneel? Okay, they have the exact same vantage point as President Trump, although President Trump explained himself in a crude manner. He shouldn't have insulted LeBron James. He shouldn't have insulted NFL athletes. It did him no good. It did the country no good, and it overshadowed the good things that he did, like the First Step Act, prison reform legislation, allocating more funding to historically black colleges and universities than any president ever. Biden wrote the crime bill with a 100-to-1 sentencing disparity. Who's the supremacist then? But anyway, you can't listen to Trump because bad things happen when people listen to Trump. The guidance applies to all campaign accounts and pages, including Team Trump and other campaign messaging vehicles on our platform and former surrogates. The email posted. Okay, so the interview was eventually posted to Lara Trump's Facebook page, but was later taken down. So, Trump is like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of politics. Now he's going to start his new social media platform. He has to make sure, because Democrats, they're presiding over an absolute catastrophe. Worse, much worse than what happened during President Trump's time. Because there's more human beings, there's a lack of resources, people are in cages, the same things are taking place. And there's a media blackout. And there's no outrage from Democrats. I mean, the hypocrisy is there. Morally superior liberals oftentimes wake up every day, or a great many morally superior liberal Democrats, wonderful, wonderful people, wake up every day saying, I am morally superior to the Neanderthals, to the, the neckbeards and the Republicans, and just the cruel Trump supporters. They're so cruel. And the wonderful and beautiful, morally superior liberal Democrats look in the mirror and say, people love me. And it was like the old SNL skit. And I am on the side of justice and reason and enlightenment. And they don't realize that all the things they said about Trump, young people in cages and oh my God, the cruelty, they're engaged in the same cruelty right now, what they consider cruel. It's cruel when President Trump does it, but it's not cruel when President Obama or Biden. There's a Senate report. Look at the Senate report when President Obama was in office. Worse than anything that took place in Trump's tenure. Worse. And I was against this family separation. You know, everything is emotion. Everything is emotion. Well, then why don't Democrats kneel during the national anthem? Why aren't they outraged at what's taking place in the southern geographic region of our country? With an influx of human beings, far more human beings than at any point during Trump's administration, with the same amount of resources or even less. So where's the outrage? Oh, okay, they're hypocrites. They only care because it hurt Trump politically, and it helped them feel good about themselves. Now they can put away the mirror, and they could put away the moral pedestal, the soapbox. Soapbox, gone. Mirror, gone. And now they're like, okay, now everything's good. Well, what about what's happening? It's actually worse than what President Trump had to deal with. No, it's not. I read an article in the Washington Post said it's not really cages. No. It's the same things. There are other articles explaining, oh, yes, they're the same. And in many cases, worse. Okay, but see, again, the ethos or the paradigm is, how can I paint myself as morally superior? Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now.